After a journey of over 25 years, the 10-year-old from Palatown has caught over 70 unique Pokemon after exploring more than 8 regions. The exact number itself is hard to pin down as Ash has caught and released a decent amount of Pokemon. He has also caught multiple of the same Pokemon, like 30 Tauroses. But today, people, I'm going to be ranking Ash's top 10 Pokemon of all time. But before we get started, I need you to stop what you're doing and use 10 million volt Thunderbolt on that like button. And heads up, to celebrate surpassing 100,000 subscribers this past month, somewhere in this video there will be a giveaway, so keep your eyes peeled. Also, real quick, I'd like to discuss the criteria for this video's ranking. The rankings will not solely be based on power alone. While yes, this will be a major factor, things like development and story, memorable/iconic moments, and just overall likability will play a role. Alrighty then, without further ado, let's begin with some honorable mentions, shall we? First up is Squirtle, one of Ash's earliest and most iconic Pokemon. Rowlet, I mean, duh, he's literally a god. Gengar, Ash's main Gigantamaxing Pokemon, and the most improved of his Journeys team. Swellow, Ash's best bird. Crocodile, the styling ace of Ash's Unova team. And the final honorable mention goes to Melmetal, Ash's first and only mythical Pokemon. Now let's begin with the real list. Coming in 10th place is Snorlax. Snorlax was one of Ash's main powerhouses in the early parts of his journey. But let's begin with his personality. He's really just what you expect. What you see is what you get with this big boy. He's a big, lovable bear who would honestly rather just take it easy and nap all day. That is, unless you piss him off. Then, your best bet is to run like the wind. As far as battling, his win rate is a ridiculously high 79%. Whenever Ash decided to bring back Snorlax for a big time battle, he always came through. Fun fact, in every official battle he was in, Snorlax took down at least one opponent Pokemon. That's basically unheard of in the anime. Snorlax is really built different. Some of his best moments include beating Gary's Nidoqueen, having Grumpig see God, and bopping Claire's Kingdra for a KO. But my favorite moment has to be when Snorlax took down both Greta's Hariyama and Metachan in the Battle Frontier. And yes, this is the battle when Snorlax used the fabled 6 moves in one match. This battle was just straight up insane. He beat 2 fighting types with no break. Snorlax is him. Coming in at 9th place is Incineroar, probably one of Ash's best written Pokemon ever. Now we've seen the tragic Firestarter backstory like a million times by now, but man did this really pull on many of our heartstrings. This was a dark and depressing storyline to a normally upbeat and comedic Alola anime series. But this kitty certainly went from zero to hero with Ash. He had to go through a lot of hardships and failures, but it's because of this heartbreaking past that he is the powerful and iconic cat he is today. It wasn't until about the Alola League that Incineroar, who at the time was just a Torracat, really came into his own. He played a major role in helping Ash defeat Guzma in the semifinals. I mean, imagine being a Scizor and just changing into this Fire Blast. But his best moment was definitely besting his rival. That of course being the Masked Royal / Professor Kukui's Incineroar. And then, that evolution scene right after was so satisfying. The only real knock on Incineroar's resume is that we never got to see him battle in his final form. We did get to see him help out a bit during the crappy Aim to be a Pokemon Master series, but that was definitely a bit of a letdown. Still though, Incineroar is one of Ash's most powerful, as well as best written Pokemon. And I don't think it's too crazy to say this, but Ash's Incineroar is probably the strongest Pokemon in the entire Alola region right now. I mean, besides legendaries and mythicals, of course. Next up, taking the 8th place on today's list is none other than Bulbasaur. One of Ash's earliest captures and undoubtedly one of his most influential. Bulbasaur has countless memorable moments on his resume. In my opinion, there are few bigger flexes in Pokemon than actually refusing evolution. That, along with helping Ash win countless gym badges and league matches, really helped separate Bulbasaur from Ash's other grass-type Pokemon. However, Bulbasaur's best moment has got to be in Ash's final battle with Brandon in the Battle Frontier. After failing to defeat Brandon 2 times before, Ash decided to bring back his 4 Kanto homies, so you knew he wasn't playing around. Then during the battle, after the hard-hitting Charizard fell in the first match to Dusclops, it was up to Bulbasaur to help change the tide of the battle. He avenged Charizard's loss by taking down Dusclops. Then, later on in the battle, he was able to tie Brandon Solrock in a double Solar Beam KO. This ultimately set the table for Pikachu, resulting in an overall Battle Frontier win for Ash Ketchum. Nowadays, Bulbasaur is Professor Oak's right-hand mon back in the lab and helps keep Ash's reserves in line, especially Heracross. And while his best battling days might be behind him, there's no doubt that Bulbasaur played a major role in developing Ash into the world champion he is today. Plus, how could you not just love seeing Bulbasaur light up with joy anytime he sees Ash? Coming in 7th place is Lycanroc, one of Ash's strongest Pokemon that oftentimes makes Ash's hypothetical ultimate team. While Ash's entire Alola team was powerful and one of his best ever, there's no doubt that Lycanroc was the cornerstone and ace of that team. As a Rockruff, he was constantly pushed to his limits, and then some by squaring off with each of Gladion and Olivia's respective Lycanrocs. Then, later on, its evolution scene was epic and mind-blowing. This was the first time the fandom was exposed to the dust form Lycanroc, and we were so amazed. And we all knew special things were coming for this orange doggo. Then, as a Lycanroc, it went through a pretty solid arc learning to control its power and anger when its fur would get dirty. Lycanroc's arc came to a climax against Nandu when he and Ash were forced to solo his entire team to complete the island trial. It was here that Lycanroc was forced to keep a steady head, and he actually helped Ash not get too overwhelmed during the battle. This moment was awesome for Lycanroc. However, my favorite is obviously in the finals squaring off with Gladion's Lycanroc. It was finally able to overcome the Lycanroc that it always looked up to, and this was the moment that finally made Ash Ketchum a champion. So satisfying. Lycanroc will go down in history as the one Pokemon to finally break that champion seal for Ash Ketchum. Just outside of the top 5, coming in 6th place is Lucario, the Aura-bonded, mega-evolving ace of Ash's Journeys team. Now, when it was revealed to us fans that Ash would be using a Lucario on his Journeys team, we all collectively lost our minds. Finally, Ash's aura powers and links with Lucario's was hinted at us decades ago in the advanced generation. Then, when he didn't get one in Sinnoh, the fandom was once again let down. But it was only right that on Ash's final series, he used his long-lost aura brother. Now, as a whole, Ash's Journeys team wasn't all that well developed. I mean, half of them can be described as strong just because. But Lucario definitely got the most screen time of any of the world champion Pokemon. Now, I'll admit, Lucario's development simply wasn't as good as some of Ash's other aces in series past. With the exception of some early struggles against Biazariolu, Lucario ended up taking very few L's in his career. His best development honestly probably just came in that one single Greninja episode, where, after a stubborn start, Lucario accepted Greninja as his mentor. This mentorship would bring out the best in Lucario, which is when he started his destructive tear. And I know I haven't really mentioned Lucario's Mega form, but honestly, this was the perfect first and only Mega for Ash. It just made the most sense for him. We've always wanted Ash to use a Mega, and we've always wanted Ash to use a Lucario, so it all checks out. Plus, it even mirrors many of our own first Mega evolving Pokemon we used back in the X and Y games. Lucario was used to help us players learn about the Mega phenomenon. Of course, Lucario's big moment was against Cynthia in the semifinals of the Masters 8. With Ash's back to the wall and only one Pokemon left, Ash left all his faith in Lucario. And you already know he clutched up. After Mega evolving, Lucario was able to take down both Cynthia's Dynamax Togekiss, as well as her OP Garchomp. This battle was epic and visually stunning. It was a pretty satisfying climax to Lucario's arc that had been building all of Journeys. Hey guys, just wanted to take a quick break here before we enter the top 5 so that I can discuss my 100,000 subscriber giveaway. The grand prize for this giveaway will be a Nintendo Switch game of your choosing, and to enter, all you have to do is the following. First, hit that subscribe button. Second, drop a like on this video. And third, I want you to comment who your favorite Pokemon is. But I also want you to say why it's your favorite. For me, I'd comment something like, Sceptile's my favorite because it was my first ever Pokemon I got to level 100. Also, I really like Ash's. One entry per person and the winner will be picked 1 month from today. Thanks guys and best of luck. Let's continue on with the video. Taking 5th place on today's list is Infernape. Infernape is probably Ash's best written Pokemon ever. Infernape has a devoted fan base, and it's no wonder why. He's awesome. As a Chimchar and under the ownership of Paul, he had a brutal life. Paul was unable to bring out his true power and help Chimchar control his powerful Blaze ability. Paul was incredibly tough on Chimchar and would even have his powerful Pokemon beat up the poor Fire Monkey. Eventually, Paul decided to release Chimchar after a poor showing in a battle, but Ash, being the true Chad that he was, took Chimchar in as his own. And you know how things ended up.
That's why he's the GOAT! The GOAT!
Infernape was the perfect piece to exemplify the differences in Ash's and Paul's ideology. While Paul acted much like a competitive Pokemon player, he only used Mons with impressive potential and power, whereas Ash would accept each of his Pokemon for who they were and would bring out the best in each of them through hard work and the power of friendship. Infernape went on an absolute tear after he reached his final form. The only real loss he suffered was to Elite Four Flint's Infernape. And you guys already know the best moment on Infernape's resume. When all hope seemed lost in the Sinnoh League against Paul,
activate Blaze ability.
The rage behind this Flare Blitz is just so epic. Electivire really didn't have a chance. In fourth place is Sceptile, Ash's most underrated Pokemon. Ash has had many great Grass-type Pokemon over the years. However, many of them decided to stay in their first form for one reason or another. It was different with this Trico. He craved power and speed, and boy did he find it. He spent most of his time in the advanced generation as a Grovyle, and there was a lot of growing pains that came during this middle stage. He definitely was not the ace of the advanced team, and he took a lot of losses. However, he still pulled through in a couple of gym battles and even in a few league matches. He was actually one of the first ever Pokemon used to show off abilities in the anime, when he activated Overgrowth against Norman's Slacking. Sceptile didn't really come into his prime until the Battle Frontier arc. Grovyle evolved in hopes of impressing a Meganium that caught his eye, but once he became rejected by Meganium, Sceptile just wasn't able to use his powers. Then Sceptile exiled himself in embarrassment. However, after spending a night outdoors with Ash, he came back in full power. He then went on to beat Spencer, Shiftry, and Claydol to earn Ash another Frontier badge. This was one of the first ever Pokemon of Ash's to go through a real arc, and it was solid. As for power, Sceptile probably has the most impressive feats of any of Ash's non-Pikachu Pokemon. His best and most iconic feat may be defeating Tobias' OP Darkrai, but let's not forget he caught a Speed Form Deoxys from behind. Sceptile is a monster and honestly deserves so much more respect and love from the fandom. In third place is Greninja. This one might be a little surprising. Normally people have Greninja around number 2, or if you're an X and Y fanboy, you probably have him as number 1. But Greninja earns the bronze here on my list. Greninja's story spans throughout the entirety of the XY anime. Beginning in episode 1, where as a Froakie, he was able to sense Ash's presence and even tanked a powered-up Electro Ball to defend Ash and Pikachu. Greninja's potential was always shown and explained to us throughout the early stages of the Kalos series. Then, once he finally fully evolved, Pokemon X, Y, and Z basically became the Greninja show. His unique, and at the time, anime-exclusive form was mind-blowing. What the heck was this new Greninja form? Well, it pretty much ended up being Mega Evolution for Ash. But the specific lore and story behind it far exceed my personal interest in any Mega Evolution. This form was actually so popular that it made its way into the mainline games, and this Greninja form was just as OP in the games as he was in the anime. Then the arc and story both Greninja and Ash went through only enhanced this form. The two had to go through some real hardships and failures to finally perfectly sync up. Greninja's power and speed are obviously off the charts, and I honestly don't think there is one single Greninja moment that's his best. He just has a ton of epic moments. His entire showing in the Kalos League was amazing, but we should also remember that Ash and Greninja were very close to taking down Kalos champion Dianthus Mega Gardevoir. If the duo were able to master the Ash Greninja transformation, I have no doubt in my mind that they would have come out victorious. It's actually Ash's Greninja that brought me back to watching the anime after a very lackluster Black and White series. And I know I'm not the only one that feels that way. He helped reignite my passion for this franchise, and I'm forever grateful for that. Taking second place on today's list is none other than Charizard, one of Ash's earliest captures that turned into one of his biggest problems, that would go on to become one of his most reliable Pokemon. Now, I know for a lot of these entries I said that there was some struggles that Ash and his Pokemon went through, but none had more growing pains than Ash and Charizard. Once Charmander evolved, it didn't do anything for Ash. I mean, as a Charizard, he actually cost Ash his first regional league. But then, in the Orange Islands, Charizard had finally been served a piece of humble pie. And then, much to Charizard's surprise, Ash cared for him and brought him back to full health. And then, Charizard finally began to listen to Ash. I grew up watching Ash in the Pokemon series every Saturday morning, and whenever Ash would bring back Charizard for an epic battle, it was always a major event on my calendar. Yup, I would cancel all playdates or Chuck E. Cheese trips that day to watch the GOAT return. While Charizard has a wildly long list of feats such as beating Articuno or sweeping half of Gary's team, I wouldn't say either of those are my favorites. My favorite moment actually has a bit of a real-world significance behind it. Let me set the scene for you. The year is 2004. I think. It's a Friday night, and after a tough week of grinding out shapes and colors, all I wanted to do was take it easy. However, my father comes to me with an idea. Let's go to the movie store. By this, he meant Blockbuster. And when we arrived, he let me pick whatever movie I wanted to watch. And once my eyes made contact with Pokemon the third movie, I knew what we were watching that night. Fast forward to halfway through the movie, when Ash is squaring off with Entei with his puny Johto Pokemon. And then Ash and Pikachu take an epic fall. To my tiny pubescent brain, I was sure this was the end for Ash. But then... peak cinema. Yes. Just yes. To this day, this is the biggest achievement in all of cinema. Sorry, Portals from Endgame. Then we got an epic battle between Charizard and Entei, and my mind was blown. To this very day, the third Pokemon movie is my all-time favorite, and I even find myself watching it once or twice a year. Charizard is probably Ash's most influential Pokemon of all time, and there's no doubt in my mind that the Pokemon franchise wouldn't be as big as it is today without Ash's Charizard. Coming in first today is Pikachu. I mean, obviously, who else would it be? This is Ash's day one homie. Together, this duo has traveled over 8 regions, been together for over 1,000+ episodes, became world champions, and turned Pokemon into the worldwide phenomenon that it is today. Looking back on the journey between these two, it actually gets me pretty emotional to think about. I mean, I grew up watching these two almost every week of my life. The first ever episode really paints Pikachu to be a black sheep of the Pokemon world. I mean, Ash definitely would have preferred any of the 3 other main Kanto starters, but he got stuck with Pikachu. And now, looking back, I'd say that was for the best for old Ashy boy. Over the years, Pikachu has beaten countless legendaries and powerful Pokemon, but Ash's and Pikachu's journey together came to a climax during the Masters 8 tournament. It's here where Pikachu was at his strongest. He took down the likes of Steven's Cradillion Mega Metagross, as well as Cynthia's Gastrodon and Spiritomb, but his best feat came in the finals against Leon, where he took down G-Max Cinderace, and then, after seeing the vision of all his previous friends and companions, found another gear and basically went Super Saiyan to defeat Leon's Charizard and earn Ash the title of World Monarch. Together, the two became the very best, like no one ever was. And now, there's no doubt in my mind that Pikachu is the strongest Pokemon in the entirety of the anime series. They're icons in both the Pokemon world and the real world. I am forever grateful to have gotten to witness the journey of Ash Ketchum and his best buddy Pikachu. Well guys, that's gonna do it for today's video. I had a ton of fun making this one, but honestly, I'm more interested in hearing your rankings of Ash's top 10 Pokemon, so be sure to drop your list in the comments section below. Thanks guys, and don't forget to enter the giveaway. Have a good one.